turn 1, turn 5, through turn 8 and 12 as well. That braking seems to be as well in for them. Good morning and a warm welcome to round 21 of this year's MotoGP World Championships. Groundbreaking territory, aren't we, in this 2025 World Championship campaign? There has never in history been 21 or around 22, which takes place next weekend to bring the curtain down on a wonderful season in MotoGP next time out in Valencia. Oh, the welcome blue skies after a great start to proceedings yesterday here at the Algarve International Circuit in Portugal. But these are live pictures. If you've joined my colleagues Kiko Giles, Elliot York, Silly and Neil Morrison for the earlier Show 3 of Moto2 action, well, you've seen some rather heavy overnight rain in this part of southwest Portugal. Construction proceedings and preparation somewhat for the smaller class, and it looks like that will be the case as well in the upcoming 30-minute MotoGP FP2, because there are still a lot of damp patches scattered around this Portimão circuit. Marquez, second world champion secured last time out, the second in the springtime Malaysian Grand Prix victory. Last time out in Sepang was the reference rider on day one, Alex, for just the second time in MotoGP, doing both sessions on a Friday. The two are standing very, very shortly. Before we do though, Matt Bowden Lewis will be talking you through all of this morning's practice and qualifying action. There's confirmation on your screen. You'll see Alex Marquez was fastest, straight for the Q2. Pecco Bagnaia, Pedro Acosta, Marco Bezzecchi, Joan Mir, John Zarco, Fabio Di Gianantonio, Freddy Aldeguer, Boris Fargo and Ryan Gura. So those three have got their places put into Q2. Jack Aprilla's mention is down in pit lane, and we're not late on the conditions of the Moto2 round we're facing the other. So let's get the thoughts of Manu Gonzalez.
Yeah, Manu was just out there late on the practice start, one of only a handful, 2 or 3 riders with the quick tyres. Tricky conditions, Manu, on that. How lab them? What's it like out there?
It was really complicated because the film are very dry already, but already in the middle of the corner you don't have very time to the tire till MotoGP guys cannot go with the car now because of course then you can find a very big wet patch easy car also
Yes, thanks Jack, thanks to Manu Gonzalez for speaking to us. There are only 10 riders in the earlier Moto2 session, which did actually set time lapse in their start to this sprint Saturday. So yeah, it's going to be a proceed with caution as Manu Gonzalez is reporting out. Still a lot of damp patches, easy to get caught out, easy to make a mistake. Well, Ray Marquez certainly did belong to Brazilian Racing's Alex Marquez, the only rider on our opening day of the penultimate Grand Prix in 2025 to find a lap in the 137. It was a 137.9. 7.4 was tight at the top. Pecco Bagnaia was second fastest, just 17th in FP1. He was out of the one from the tyre motor in the first session. Bagnaia at 38.00, 300ths behind Alex. Pedro Acosta, we've just seen that on the screens, completing that ultra-tight top 3. He was third fastest on the factory at KTM. Is this the weekend where Acosta can finally win the first MotoGP? Acosta third quickest, and also very, very close to Alex Marquez. The top 3 split by less than 100ths of a second.
All of the heavyweights of 2025 were towards the front. All of them here, of course, the injury ruling Marquez out for the rest of the season. Alex Marquez quickest, and then the 3 riders who are battling to join Mark and Alex at the MotoGP Awards next weekend. Third in the World Championship, were all right behind him. Pecco Bagnaia, 300ths behind Pedro Acosta, 600ths behind Bagnaia, and Marco Bezzecchi, 700ths behind Acosta inside your top 4. So very different to choose between the riders. Second, third, fourth and fifth in the World
this afternoon's sprint, 3 p.m. local time, 12 laps will be underway in the sprint, and at 1 p.m. local time, with a slightly revised Sunday schedule of 25 laps. And we're sort of looking at Alex Marquez, Spaniard, Acosta, Marco Bezzecchi as that top quartet, but the lead contenders. A few mentioning keeping a close eye on Juan Mir, the French Honda. That mentioned Alex Marquez, the 29-year-old Spaniard, in Malaysian Grand Prix, where he just said super relaxed. From turn one on that one yesterday morning, he was in the flow. He was in the groove, which is so right about his Portimão circuit. Alex said he could try and force the bike, try and make that time come through. That's what the way to tackle this Portimão Grand Prix now. Or just the simple time is through. Both sessions on Friday, superstars, and probably continue later on.
He's going to take some momentum this morning, in particular in qualifying, although of course the overnight rain and the additional placement this morning put a little bit of complexion on qualifying. You'd expect that time against QT, it's certainly going to dry down and further rain, but it is going to be a factory at the moment. We're watching Jack Miller in the corner because he's thrown down the gauntlet to Juan Mir, who I actually envisioned a Jack Miller jump on it in now the Juan Mir jump. The 2020 World Champion got some airtime punching the Craig Jones corner of turn 9 yesterday. As you saw, you can now see on the mobile screens, Jack Miller has challenged Juan Mir to a jump off this morning. Let's hope the Apache racetrack has almost come back.
He's going to face off then for the jump off. This was Miller's best effort yesterday morning. We know that Middle Airways always comes to play here in Portimão. That's a bad little starter, a little open error. And behind Alex Marquez. All fast laps, small smiles as far as Mir's concerned. Many more podiums to come in 2020. I really feel like he's in the game once again.
Temperatures, conditions, but it worked. Just about everywhere now, which is looking to make it a very stick by the side of this Martin Grand Prix, but potentially an impactful option. Talk about Wilson.
Yamaha. He's sold them by taking 8.5 out of 10 for that. So on that one, in terms of black colour performance, there's a real top flight. It's far. Runs down in 13th place. Close to right. He wanted to get off pretty sharply yesterday. Missing grip, missing top speed, which has been the story really for the last 2 or 3 years now on Yamaha. Not to right there, best running in 13th place. It's 10th of a second behind again. Jack Miller, who did have a spill yesterday afternoon at turn 5, was 18th. What happened to her there on day 1 here? He's last and 22nd. Marquez had one headline yesterday for all the right reasons.
having 26 the experience and the speed to release with the tire and go to races and the test after Valencia with bike and the incident, so he will have the opportunity to compare the new bike during the following year.
For Pecco in particular, obviously the flyaways were so up and down, but yesterday, despite a difficult morning, we understand that because of the wrong choice of front tyre, it feels as though again he's managed to find a more consistent pace out.
I think after Sepang, I said that I was really confident here in Portimão. Then honestly, yesterday morning I was a little hard pace because it was after that, but finally definitely wide. One of the fastest guy of the championship and the fastest.
For a season that he's had, just how important is it that he's found that consistency? This stage of the season,
he needs to found it because he needs to have a very good winter test. One of the guys that will play for the championship.
Thanks, Davide. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks as always to Ducati, the Novo team boss, Davide Tardozzi, as Buliga and Bagnaia. I think we're just having a little chat here about maybe where some of these sketchy parts are currently around this Portimão circuit are certainly pointing towards that fourth sector, aren't they? Going through turn 14 and then down the hill on several plunges downhill through sort of 14 and 15. 9 riders so far in this sort of overnight rain disrupted FP2 session have set time laps. Frankie Morbidelli the best of them with a 151.414. Just for reference, just a reminder, in the full dry weather yesterday, Alex Marquez's best time was a 137.974. So we're around 14 seconds away from that kind of benchmark. As Fabio Quartararo, Yamaha rider coach, who is on a good close look at how the tarmac is drying up on the start-finish straight. Still very, very patchy, it seems.
We've done a lot since the Moto2 session got underway. When I first came to the college box, looked outside the window, there was barely a dry line really down the main straight. There's much more of it now. But we're in that sort of situation where the best way to dry the track out is to put bikes around it and clear some of the water away. But of course, no one wants to be that guinea pig that goes out and does it really and clears the water away. Of course, with qualifying 1 coming up in just over half an hour's time, the last thing you want in this section anyway, particularly when conditions are like this, is to have some sort of crash on a wet patch, damage your bike, and potentially leave yourself to bite down those crucial qualifying sessions to come.
Might not be a bad thing today, though, to be in that Q1 session, just to have a bit of an ideal reference going into the second session. Speaking about Q1, well, just behind Iago in 11th and 12th yesterday were Luca Marini and Frankie Morbidelli, the pair of them really having to rue early crashes in practice at turn 13. Oh, the jump off is the contest. It seems like Tranmere's up for already. He thrills the crowd. Yeah, that's some proper airtime. Well, there's a bit of competition here. Do you buy a ticket on Miller Airways, or do you get a ticket on Mir Airlines, or do you even go with perhaps Jet Rings? Probably all three of them looking for the honours, biggest airtime going over turn 8.
It's a Jet Rings holiday, as they say. Alex is currently out there in 6th place, a 152.3 for him. Best we've seen so far is a 51.4 from Frankie Morbidelli. Miller may well have seen that replay of Tranmere, so he was the one that laid the gauntlet down and took the challenge to Joan. So it's over to you, Jack. Let's see what you've got.
Be quiet right now here in Portimão. Only Morbidelli and, as you can see on screens, Alex Rins are out on circuit. Those riders have had a little bit of an exploratory look out on track. Have already seen enough. Probably on that tipping point now, aren't we, where it's just too dry now for the rain tyres. They're just going to get destroyed and chewed up very, very quickly. But no sense in going out risking it at this moment on the slicks either, because maybe not quite dry enough for the slick tyres. So we'll just sit tight and wait and see what it's going to be like in 20 minutes time, 25 minutes or so time when Q1 gets underway. Just to remind those riders in Q1, Marini, Morbidelli, Quartararo, you can see on screens, Binder, who's second in this That session. Ralph Fernandez, Miller, Buliga, Rins, Bastianini, Chanter, Salvatore and Oliveira. They're all the riders that will be in the opening qualifying session. Let's go back down the pit lane to Jack for an update.
Yeah, just had a very quick word with Akiayo, who's chatting to both Pedro and Brad, who've just come back in, and he said that the problem is it's too dry for wet right now, and it's too wet for dry. Aki's saying that hopefully the plan is for them to leave in 5 or 10 minutes, and then they can head out on a dry section, and Jack Miller goes past it, and guess what? Jack, as always, is the guinea pig. Dry front, dry rear. Let's have a close look at Jack to see what conditions are like. I guess we could have predicted that one, that Jack would be the first one to try.
Yeah, if anybody was going to do it, you always knew it was going to be through them. Yeah, thanks very much, as always, Jack. As we can see, Lorenzo Savadori and Marco Bezzecchi, they're also having a little bit of a debrief, just like Bagnaia and Buliga were, just a bit of advice to each other on where sort of they're finding grip or where perhaps the slipperier sections are still around this Algarve International Circuit. Jack Miller might have to be lonesome very quickly. Frankie Morbidelli is still out on track on Rain River, but they can see he's always the first one, as he can take a punt. He's always the first one to roll the dice, isn't he? So Miller, under the sunshine on a damp surface here in Portimão, the first rider to go out on slick rubber.
I remember yesterday in practice when there was a little bit of rain falling, Miller crashed right here at turn 5 and was absolutely living with himself. So he'll be, I guess, exercising a little bit of caution. Perhaps isn't the moment to be responding to some jump-off challenges from Joan Mir. When we were on the air for Moto2 earlier on this morning, the area where a few riders were having some trouble was here, coming out of turn 8, just as you're feeding the power in. A little bit of a wet patch there that you have to give your attention. And if you're Jack Miller at the moment, this is just an understanding exercise, just to get some knowledge, because Jack Miller is one of those riders in qualifying 1, and no matter what kind of conditions we're faced with, whether they're wet, whether they're dry, or something in between, when the green light comes on the qualifying 1, you're going to have to get out there.
And you can see Jack's not wasting fresh soft rubber. We saw he's ventured out on a 7-lap-old front tyre, and he looked like a soft rear tyre he would have used for one of his time attacks yesterday. So very much just a sense here of judging the conditions, just to get a feel for how we reach that. Point. Is it now got enough for slick tyres? Well, it was a brilliant Friday, wasn't it, for Alex Marquez? Superb to lead the way in FP1. He led the
that at the moment we are in our comfort zone, let me say like this. So we have to see, we have to wait for the track will be dry soon. There is no expectation for rain today, so I think that we need to.
For me, just being out on the wet, what was the feedback on the track?
The feedback is that it's not it's dry. It's prone to put big tire at the moment, but of course we have to, the rider that was into Japan, we have to take some risk, I think, but we end up that the track is.
Looking at the lap times, everybody, yesterday, it seemed quite close. Ali, Marco, Pedro, Nico, all in the mix. Who do you feel is going to be the closest competitors going into the sprint? Because we've only got yesterday our practice racing to look at.
Also, Acosta in really good shape, but I think that we had a really good pace, because I think that yesterday Alex was more constant and a lot more faster in the sector compared to the others. But I think that the crucial things will be start for the front row and.
Thanks for Gaelic, good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Gresini boss Michele Massini. You've just seen their shots of Quartararo and Binder leaving pit lane on slick Michelin rubber as well. They've seen enough of Jack Miller getting up to speed quite nicely on those used soft tyres. Miller now set the best time of the morning, a 1:50.315. We're still a million miles away from the optimal best times on on slick rubber on a full dry surface here in Portimão. As we saw yesterday in the Moto2 session, you have to be careful as well on the white lines and the curves here as well in Portimão, and particularly Dan Alonso and Danny Holgado getting caught out yesterday. So you do have to be millimetre precise and perfect when you're attacking this Portimão circuit in these greasy slip conditions.
So I could talk about temperature in the tyres. In wet condition, drying track, you want to try and keep the temperatures as cool as possible in the wet tyres. When, of course, you're on the slicks, it's the reverse. You want to get as much temperature as you can, as quickly as you can, because, of course, in tyre temperatures, you are potentially more susceptible to having a rather harmless looking crash that could do some serious damage to yourself and your weekend. Miller now drops over towards turn 9, and he's just going to get quicker and quicker as the temperature builds in the tyres, the water gets to clear away, and the confidence builds in a rider who doesn't generally lack much confidence.
Marco and Antonio have ventured back out on circuit. They have decided not to move over onto slip rubber at the moment. We can just see Zarco briefly behind. There he is, just in the shot for a millisecond behind Jack Miller. Zarco's out on a medium front rain tyre and a soft rear rain tyre. Gian Antonio, he's still on rain rubber as well. Up Miller, who's going to be 48, probably here, if not even better. So yesterday, Fabio Di Gianantonio booking his place directly through into Q2, just missing out. Playing nearly for the crash at turn 13 was Frankie Morbidelli. Let's get some of the 46 spots. Pablo Nieto, who joins you.
I'll touch on Frankie in a minute, but first I wanted to talk to Pablo about Fabio, because I had a really interesting conversation with him yesterday, and he was explaining the change in methods, the change in work that he was doing with his crew chief and his data engineer yesterday, and he felt that was a huge step forward. So can you just explain to everyone at home what the guys were different yesterday to try and find a more consistent level?
Yeah, in the end, I think in the last races we are making a very good job. It's very important to make something different, no? Because we have to watch in the back, and we know that in some races we make some mistakes and we have to change something, no? So it's important to try to make something different. In the last races we are making with the crew chief, with the mechanic, with the data guy, also with Dija, so that's very, very important for us. And look like that the new system, let's say, is just, it's not a new system of work, and looks like it's a little bit better. But in the end, to work, nothing changed with the bike, nothing, it's just a little bit to make it a little bit different.
Fabio was explaining that they've almost simplified how they do things when it comes into the back of the box. It all comes from having finally built up a relationship, obviously, the crew chief, new data engineer once again this year for Fabio, and that takes some time. But now they've both got a better understanding of each other. When Fabio feels a certain way, they know that the bike normally needs to go in a certain direction, and it's taken that long for them to understand that.
Yeah, you know, sometimes it's very difficult to find the way between the rider and the crew chief and the data guy. So to try to find a very good balance takes some time, no? And sometimes happen also that you must think something, no? Because when you are flat, you have to try to be more able. And also sometimes we, like a team, we have to say to the rider, wait. It's very important also that we are working on you, not only on the bike. And it's all the time that we have to make meetings with the rider, with the
Of course, Frankie coming up in Q1, we're going qualifying in just over 10 minutes. Bike is about to head out now. How important are these next 10 minutes for him to get an understanding of the conditions before he has to push in what are going to be very difficult conditions?
Yeah, now I was talking with him because normally, you know, in this practice, if 4 or 5 minutes, we stop to make the Q1, no, because we have to prepare the bike. And now it's very, very last 10 minutes, you have to be on the track to understand how is the track, no, because every single lap the tracks change. So it's very, very important to be a lot of time in the track to understand how it's working, and then to try to make a very good qualifying.
Frankie had stood up, but he's back down again, so I think he's just going to wait 50 seconds. Back to Pablo.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to VR46 boss Pablo Nieto. P1 session. Yeah, this track just evolving second by second, isn't it, lap by lap at the moment, as it just gets drier and drier. We saw Fabio Quartararo power the factory Yamaha down the start finish straight. That's dried up pretty now where there's no spray at all being kicked up off those Michelin slick tyres. Miller was the first one to go out on the slip. No great surprise that he's put himself down to a 147.214. Potter also in the 147s as well.
Rivera just putting on the Buliga there. It's condition when you're just still learning how to ride a MotoGP bike. Do without situations like this. Why Buliga, I think, was so keen to speak to Pecco Bagnaia early on, just to understand for the outback Bagnaia did how the track was. Of course, the track very much a living thing. It's changing, as Pavanetta said, every single lap that you do around this Portimão circuit. You're going to face a different challenge than the one before it. But Niccolo Buliga, who's just looking for quality laps on board a MotoGP bike, he could do without this.
Well, these sketchy conditions at least have taken Miguel Oliveira from last to first on the standings. Something for the home fans to smile about. I thought it was a pretty brutal Friday as far as the home crowd hero goes. 1.9 seconds Oliveira eventually finished day one behind Alex Marquez. His stay at the top though was a short-lived affair because second rider into the 46, slightly faster. Dan following in behind riding Miguel is Quartararo, 6.373. So we're finally now within 10 seconds of the best pace we saw yesterday. Brad Binder's third fastest. We know that Binder's always a strong rider when there's low grip and challenging conditions. So yeah, it was a tough rider to say the least, wasn't it? I thought Miguel Oliveira down in 22nd place. He was hoping for some help overnight from Prima Yamaha. Jack Mir also featuring in Q1 coming up shortly. So what are the prospects of the boys advancing into that second qualifying test? Let's get the thoughts of the boss in a Ford Sawyer with Jack.
Yeah, with Jack Miller now back in the box after being the first rider out there on straight. Gino, you just had a quick conversation with him. What did Jack have to say?
Yeah, he said part of that corner where it's quite tricky still. Not so nice grip, but apart of that, it's quite good.
It's just the final corner, the biggest area for him. Looking at both guys, it was a difficult day for the Yamaha full stop yesterday, but I imagine these conditions, ones that give you an opportunity.
Fine, even like this for us, because we are quite good in this kind of situation, but I think in 20 minutes we'll be completely dry, so we'll be different.
And I imagine as a result of that, the lack of dry track time, what you need to dry track time. And you needed dry track time this morning to try and help Miguel.
Right, we support as well Miguel because it's a big weekend, as we said several times. I think this morning we found some solution because it seems quite good. This condition helped us to make a good thing.
Thanks, Gino.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Gino Borsoi, thanks to Jack for that chat with Gino down in pit lane 45. We've got now right in from both Brad Binder, Alex Rins, Quartararo and Lorenzo Savadori, who once again is standing in for the injured Jorge Martin. For the housekeeping, if you are just joining us for the first time this weekend, no Jorge Martin replaced by Lorenzo Savadori. We're awaiting an imminent medical check on Martin to find out if he will be participating in our season-ending Grand Prix Valencia next weekend. Still no Maverick Vignale. There's perhaps more optimistic signs that Maverick will be back in Valencia as he recovers from a serious left shoulder injury. He's replaced once again by Thomas Barger, who is going to be superb. 4 races in a row. He's gone directly into Q2. And, of course, we are missing our new world champion, Marc Marquez. That's the reason why you're seeing Niccolo Buliga as part of the factory Ducati project here this weekend. There's Acosta then now. And lowers the bar. We're down to 1:43.331. Acosta 1.5 seconds clear of Oliveira.
And it's a Buliga who briefly went before. He's now dropped back down to 5th as Mir takes second place. So it's Acosta on a 43.3. It's a second clear of Mir. Naturally, in these conditions, different riders with different confidence levels, getting up to speed at different rates, you do see a massive spread in the lap time. So Mir's 9/10 behind Acosta. He's then in turn half second clear of Oliveira. Marini. Buliga is 2 seconds off the pace, but still at a very fine 5th place. And Pedro Acosta gets his playing with us when you really hear this weekend and next weekend in Valencia. Of course, there is still a mathematical shot of Pedro Acosta snatching 3rd in the World Championship. He's going to have to do quite a bit of winning to today, tomorrow, and next weekend in Valencia. If that is going to happen, but Pedro Acosta, I think, wants to bring it into his final two Grand Prix to finally get that first MotoGP victory on the board.
He's pushing, it's still there, that losing the rear end as he climbed up through turn 9. Yeah, these conditions not really too dissimilar for Budica to what he faced at Continent when he made his GP25 debut in Jerez. It was a very damp Andalusian venue. Budica, as we pick up Alex Marquez, powering down into this real tricky downhill braking zone for the first corner. Alex was saying yesterday you have to be so careful here not to brake too hard into that first turn to avoid getting a big stoppie. Last thing you want to do is taking too much weight and loading too much off the rear tyre. Chucking weight over the front. So, some riders said yesterday it's one of the toughest braking. Just saw it spin up on the rear there, no problems though for Acosta. You just know he didn't back out of it at all, didn't close the throttle. Yeah, it seems like Portimão got a little bit bumpier as well, something else for the riders to contend with around what is already a pretty unique and challenging 4.6-kilometre layout.
The undulation does also play a role in how this track ultimately drives. The water will perhaps slip around, hang around in some of the deeper parts of this circuit. We drop downhill now into turn 13, 14 with Alex Marquez. The long lap penalty zone being pretty much fully dry now until we get into the heart of the final corner, and then we have to be a little bit careful. Difficult to quite see from the on-board with Miguel Oliveira, who's further back down the racetrack on that final corner with the information which just relayed to Gino Borsoy, which he then passed on to us. Then the final corner still problematic with some wet patches hanging around.
Continue racing 1-2. Aldeguer leading the way now with a 42.701. Well, he needs something to put a smile on his face after a dismal Friday, didn't he? Oliveira, and he might well be doing so at the moment. On course to set the fastest time late on in this morning session with 3 bits remaining. Bagnaia, that fear getting faster as well, but the time is going to just drop continually now because these are clearly the best conditions we've had of this morning session. The track conditions are going to improve. We've got pretty much a dry surface, temperature of the tyres, a bit more rubber being laid down as well. Oliveira climbed up to 6. Bagnaia is second, and Nadra Mir Julie Dose occupied top spot with a 42.664.
What's no great surprise is that the last rider to go out there and put many lap times in is Raul Fernandez, who had a big crash yesterday morning in pre-practice 1. He did go out in practice and did a pretty good job, it has to be said. Ultimately 15th quickest he was, and only around about a third of a second away from qualifying 2. Raul is now out there on the racetrack. He's just come across the line now, his first time lap of the morning in 17th place. But given how he's feeling physically, no surprise that he was the last rider prepared to take any risks.
Good ending to the session for Aldeguer. He got straight through to Q2 yesterday for just the second time in the last 7 Grand Prix. Friday afternoons have been a little bit tough going for our Man League Grand Prix winner. 8th in the World Championship, as I said yesterday, that's likely to be as good as it gets for the rookie. 40 points, he is adrift. The Fabio de Gian Antonio with the 2 Grand Prix remaining. Brilliant debut season for Ferdinand Aldeguer. He's over the line now. He's going to take the top spot. It does indeed. 41.654. He's going to be usurped very, very quickly though by the likes of Bezzecchi, by Bagnaia, Mir, which gains on another good lap. On board with Bez, he bumped, and you can see there through that final corner. That's where it was perhaps a little bit slick as well. We heard some comments from other riders earlier on in this session. Second, he was the one rider that Alex Marquez, Pedro Acosta in particular, identified as a big, big threat over the course of the sprint and Grand Prix. They were all saying, yeah, we're keeping a very close eye on Bezzecchi, looking for an immediate bounce back from what was a very underwhelming Malaysia Grand Prix. And you look at how strong he really was over in Japan, over in Indonesia and in Australia.
The championship kind of got away with one with Bagnaia and Parker on the Sunday. Bagnaia took third back in the World Championship when he won the sprint, and Bezzecchi nearly finished in 6th from deep on the 5th row of the grid. And of course, with Bagnaia not scoring on the Sunday, even though Bezzecchi only finished 11th in the Grand Prix, he moves back ahead of the 2-time MotoGP World Champion. Bezzecchi is 5 points ahead of Pecco Bagnaia for 3rd overall. Bagnaia is then in turn 26 ahead of Pedro Acosta.
If Bagnaia, that's this weekend, does it matter do you really care about finishing third in the World Championship? And he said, well, third's better than fourth. There's probably a few euros in it in terms of bonuses at the end of the season, but quite clearly, as Pecco was quite keen to reiterate, was he's not here to play for third place in the World Championship. Third place in the World Championship might be good enough for some. It certainly ain't good enough for Pecco Bagnaia, who sets himself exceptionally high standards. This will be his lowest World Championship finish for 3 or 4 seasons, wouldn't it? Double World Champions, a close second to Jorge Martin last year. Not just the fact he's going to finish potentially as high as third in the World Championship. It's the monumental points gap between himself and Marquez siblings. I mean, Pecco is not far shy of 300 points behind Mar. And we haven't seen Mark, of course, race in Phillip Island and in Spain. We're not going to see him race for the rest of the season, which shows the golfing class there between the two factory Ducati superstars this year.
We do end the morning with a Grassini 1-2, 3,000s between them, and Alex Marquez. That means Gian Antonio might still change that. He's out there on the circuit at the moment, one of the last riders to really get up to speed on slick tyres. He now comes through 11 and up towards 12 and 13. Trouble with the Marquez brothers from here, so it is going to be Aldeguer and Alex Marquez 1-2. Be a third for Bezzecchi, Bagnaia, Acosta and Zarco, and Gian Antonio probably on the target here, slotted just behind Zarco and ahead of Raul Fernandez. They're 7th and 8th.
At least we are going to get a full dry circuit for the upcoming time attacks in Q1 and in Q2. With Gian Antonio potentially pushing inside the top 10 as he the checkered flag just outside in 12th place. Mission accomplished yesterday as far as Digi is concerned, getting himself directly into Q2. That's been a great record here though in Portimão, 10th in the Grand Prix here last year. He's only finished 3 starts in the Premier Class, hasn't scored a point in both of our sprints here previously. But a particularly good circuit in the past for the 27-year-old Italian. But a good start to sprint Saturday as far as Fermin Aldeguer is concerned, as he looks for his 4th sprint podium of the campaign this afternoon. Potentially a maiden sprint victory from Aldeguer, who's picked up medals in Le Mans, in Aragon and most recently in Mandalika. Still awaiting though his first goal.
I did say yesterday that this track was one of the easiest he found to learn on board a MotoGP bike. Very fast and flowing. Aldeguer certainly enjoying it, as he is enjoying the Jack Miller jump, the Joan Mir jump. Either way, Fermin Aldeguer certainly enjoying life. The more comfortable a jump over there with the track now drying out. Here's Joan Mir, who certainly enjoyed his launch over here on the wets earlier on, and getting even more air under his tyres now on the slicks.
He's really enjoying it at the moment, isn't he, Joan Mir? He's a completely different character to the sort of forlorn Figure Cup, the changing Figure Cup over the last couple of years, when Honda were just really struggling for any kind of performance, any kind of improvement really. That was another issue that Mir felt hard to take, that well, there was a lot of work going on behind the scenes. There was sort of no tangible evidence of any significant improvement on track. Well, that's not been the case in 2025. That Honda has made huge steps forwards. They try to catch Ducati once again.
He ended the morning in 3rd place. The 2 Grassini riders, it's Fermin Aldeguer from Alex Marquez. We'll see both of those in Q2, along with Mir, Bezzecchi, Bagnaia, Acosta and Zarco, who completed the top 7. Raul Fernandez doing really well, really, to take 8 plates on. He was one of the last to join the track on slicks. Paul Spargo 9th from Miller, Binder, Gian Antonio and Nicolo Buliga 13th. Chantra 14th ahead of Oliveira, who led at 1 point when he went to slicks. Took Jimmy Quattararo.
MotoGP World Championship campaign. Up next, we go qualifying the penultimate. and welcome back to Portugal's sunny Algarve coast. Join us live as we are set to go qualifying for the penultimate time of the 2025 MotoGP World Championship. Just 4 qualifying sessions remain of our longest season in history. The first of them coming up next. He won over 15 minutes. The top two are Nicola Bruniger in for the injured Marc Marquez, Alex Rins and Air Bastianini, Tomcat Chance and Lorenzo Salvador replacing Roy Martin, and Miguel Oliveira in his home Grand Prix farewell in front of his home crowd.